Amen. Thanks to everybody for coming to our backyard service. I'm unlike Rich. I'm not a fan of bugs. That's why I wore my pants and I wore my long shirt. I will definitely be sweating. But amen. We're out in the backyard enjoying life, and we're having a condensed service today because all the fellowship is going to be at the end when we get to eat together. And hopefully you saw the picture I posted on our GroupMe. Rich was throwing it down, made some ribs and some chicken, so we'll be able to enjoy all of that.
Chicken and ribs and ribs.
There you go.
That's right. And I of course, I brought watermelon.
Go Cody.
Sam's Club, I mean, they had, it was like the land of milk and honey when it came to watermelon. So I went there yesterday. It was great. Cut it up this morning. Tasted great. So we're going to have a quick sermon today. Go ahead and turn over to John. We finally made it out of John 6. We're in John 7. While you're turning there, I want to ask you, I want to tell you a story. I was a sophomore in college. I was in my Calculus 2 class. It wasn't bad. I had an amazing professor. Her name was Professor Lee Land, and she was really good. She was really smart. She was really able to teach and help us all. But in my class, I was sitting at my desk, and right in front of me was this skater kid. All right, he had the skater look, had the down to his shoulders hair, gauges, just this skater kid. And I was like, man, am I judgmental? Man, what a punk. I know what kind of kid he probably is. And I was like, man, this guy, he thinks he's so cool with his hair and his gauges. I didn't think anything of it. And that first week of classes, I get reached out to. I wasn't a Christian. I don't know what I believed, and these guys come up to me, share their faith. I come out to a Friday devotional. Come to find out, that skater kid is on stage. Gauges and all. I'm like, he might be at this Friday devotional, but let's be honest, he's probably not living it out. He's a skater kid. He probably has a secret life or... And then I get to meet him. And I get to build a friendship with him. And we become roommates.
Wow.
And then he becomes one of my best friends. And then he's a groomsman in my wedding. And I'm a groomsman in his wedding.
Wow.
And it's crazy how we can pass these judgments. Or I can pass these judgments, and without ever talking to someone, without ever having a conversation with someone, I can immediately pass a judgment on someone. But come to find out, they're amazing. They could be a really great friend. And what I want to talk about today is this concept of judging correctly. Hopefully you guys are over in John 7. Kind of give you a little bit of background. What we talked about last week was Jesus was preaching in the synagogue, and the Jews were grumbling and complaining who are you? You can't be this guy who you say you are. And they turn away, or the leaders actually trying to capture him and kill him. And then his own disciples whoa, who can accept this teaching? And then they turn back. And then he looks to the 12 and they're like, where am I going to go?
Yep.
We left everything to follow you. What are we going to do? So it's in this kind of strand of he has lost his followers. Jesus has lost a good portion of his followers, except for the 12. So then we see here what we're about to read what happens. In John 7, starting in verse 1. After this, again, after all of that we just talked about, Jesus went around in Galilee. He did not want to go about in Judea because the Jewish leaders were looking for a way to kill him. But when the Jewish festival of the Tabernacles was near, Jesus' brothers, not just his spiritual brothers, this is talking specifically about his biological brothers, said to him, "Leave Galilee and go to Judea, so that your disciples there may see the works you do. No one who wants to become a public figure acts in secret. Since you are doing these things, show yourself to the world." For even his own brothers did not believe in him. Therefore Jesus told him, "My time is not yet here. For you, any time will do. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify that its works are evil. You go to the festival. I am not going up to this festival because my time has not yet fully come." After he said this, he stayed in Galilee. However, after his brothers had left for the festival, he went also, not publicly, but in secret. Now at the festival, the Jewish leaders were watching for Jesus and asking, "Where is he?" Among the crowd, there were widespread whispering about him. Some said, "He's a good man." Others replied, "No, he deceives the people." But no one would say anything publicly about his fear for the leaders. 14. Not until halfway through the festival did Jesus go up to the temple courts and begin to teach. The Jews were amazed and asked, "How did this man get such learning without having been taught?" Jesus answered, "My teaching is not my own. It comes from the one who sent me. Anyone who chooses to do the will of God will find out whether my teaching comes from God or whether I speak on my own. Whoever speaks on their own does so to gain personal glory. But he who speaks the glory of the one who sent him is a man of truth. There is nothing false about him. Has not Moses given you the law? Yet not one of you keeps the law. Why are you trying to kill me?" "You are demon-possessed," the crowd answered. "Who's trying to kill you?" Jesus said to them, "I did one miracle, and you were all amazed. Yet because Moses gave you circumcision, though actually it did not come from Moses, but from the patriarchs, you circumcise a boy on the Sabbath. Now if a boy can be circumcised on the Sabbath so that the law of Moses may not be broken, why are you angry with me for healing a man's whole body on the Sabbath? Stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly." There's a lot in this passage, so let's try and unpack it. Jesus is with his brothers, his biological brothers, and while he's with his brothers, they know what they have to do. As good Jewish men, they are to travel to 3 festivals a year. One of those being the Festival of Tabernacles. And we see in this passage, this is that time frame where they are going to travel for this Festival of Tabernacles. And so what is this festival? This festival is laid out in great detail in Leviticus 23. I'm not going to go there, but I encourage you to read it. In this festival, they are celebrating the escape from Egypt. But not just the time that they are able to get through and out of Egypt, but as God provided in the desert. So what they would do is they would build these huts, or it's also called the Festival of Booths. They'd build these like booth shapes or tabernacles, and then they would stay there. They would actually be required to eat all their meals inside the tabernacle or inside the hut. So they were going to this festival where, again, all Jewish men were required to go. So think about it. Jesus has just lost this massive following. But now there's this festival of all new people coming into Jerusalem. And his brothers aren't ignorant to what's going on. They know his brother has these these powers. They've heard that he's fed these people and that he's healed these people. And his brothers are saying, hey, you want to be a public figure? You need to go to this festival. This is a great time to regain that following. Unfortunately, they've judged incorrectly of what Jesus was wanting. They've judged incorrectly of what he was there to do. He wasn't there to just have a massive following. He was there to change the world. He wasn't ready to just be this public figure. He was ready to be the Son of Man, ready to sacrifice himself. But it was not his time yet. He said that to his brothers, that my time has not fully come. So his brothers go to the festival, and Jesus acts in secret and goes after them. Not as a public figure, but there to, again, observe the Jewish festival. So with this influx of Jews and with all these people coming in, Jesus goes to the festival. And about halfway through the festival, he decides it's time for me to step up. I'm going to go to the temple courts and I'm going to start speaking. I'm going to start teaching what God has taught me and told me to say. So as he is preaching, as he starts to talk, there's again grumbling. Like the Jewish leaders are looking to kill him. The Jewish leaders are looking to capture him and to take him captive and put him to death for blasphemy. Not even just blasphemy, but because he has healed a man on the Sabbath. He has healed a man on the Sabbath. And this goes back to early in John 6 when the paralyzed man is healed by the water, where he's been an invalid for 38 years, and he heals him on the Sabbath, and there's this huge uproar of why. Who does he think he is? He can't do that. There are rules against doing work on the Sabbath. But what we see here is Jesus starts to expose this double standard. This standard that the Jewish leaders don't want this healing on the Sabbath, but what about circumcision? As a Jew, in Leviticus 12:3, on the 8th day, you were to circumcise your sons after birth, the 8th day after birth. And that would symbolize, or to a sign of God's covenant with his people. That's a big deal. To have them circumcised on the whether it landed on the Sabbath or not, you were supposed to do it on the 8th day as a sign of your covenant with God, but even as a kind of a, you see Paul kind of brag about it. I'm a Jew of Jews. I was circumcised on the 8th day. It was a sign of honor. But Jesus is saying, you're willing to uphold Moses' commands even when it's on the Sabbath. But what about when the Son of Man comes and he heals someone not just spiritually, but physically? Then you have a problem. There is a double standard going on, and you are not judging correctly. Jesus is telling the crowd to think deeper. He says, you are looking at mere appearances. You are on the surface level thinking right now. You need to judge correctly. But think about it. In Lynchburg, when people say judge, that's a trigger word. Right? And like, you're judging me. Only God can judge me. What is Jesus trying to say here? He's telling the leaders and the crowd to judge correctly. Obviously, God or Jesus has the final judgment, right? He is the one that you stand before at the end of time that will pass judgment. That is God's job. That is Jesus. That's absolute. Jesus here is not saying to put people on trial. What he's saying here is when you are developing or forming an opinion or a conclusion, you need to do it correctly. Not passing judgment as like, oh, you're going to heaven or you're going to hell. That's not what he's saying here. What he's saying here is when you start to conform, or when you start to develop a conclusion in your mind, whether it's about a situation, whether it's about a person, whether it's about whatever, make sure you're judging correctly. What does that mean? That we can't jump to conclusions. We can't jump and assume. We can't make finite decisions when we don't have the information. We have to ask questions. We have to ask questions. For myself, and I think about in my marriage and how easy it is to assume motive.
Yep, yep,
How easy it is to assume she meant it.
yep.
She meant to do it. She was thinking those thoughts. I know it. It's so easy to assume the other person had impure motives. Jesus says we need to judge correctly. We need to ask questions. We cannot assume anything. We need to judge correctly. Let's be honest, judging's going to happen. When you walk into a situation, you're analyzing everything. Or at least in my brain, I analyze everything. As an engineer, I'm looking with my head on a swivel, like okay, not that way, this way, okay, that. And I'm not saying that's bad, but when it comes to interactions with people, we have to do a better job at asking questions. Not assuming, not judging, but asking and understanding. Because you never know what's going on in someone's head. You never know what's going on in someone's life. And for us to assume we know is incredibly arrogant. It's incredibly arrogant to think, oh, you look like this, so you must be like this. Or even worse, what happens, you look like this, there's no way that you're open to God's message. You look like you don't love God. Even to say that out loud is incredibly arrogant. We have to ask questions. We have to open our mouths. When it comes to sitting down and studying the Bible with people, we absolutely need to ask questions. Going in without assuming we know the answers. Or going in assuming that we know it's going to be a fight. So I'm going to gather up all of my arguments and be ready for it. How do you know? I'm not saying don't be prepared. I'm saying allow God to work without your assumptions. Even when it comes to reaching out to people, how quickly we can pass judgment. Like, oh, this person, suit and tie, looks like he has it all together. He doesn't need God. Look at him. He's probably gonna be the soil of thorns. He might like it, but life's just gonna stamp it out or choke it out. Oh, man, this guy, he looks like he's rough. He's not gonna be the good soil. We have to be very careful that we are making correct judgments. And how that starts is not assuming. Allow people, or allow their words to help you make a judgment. When it comes to conflict, inside the church, outside the church, inside your home, this is critical. We can't jump to conclusions. We can't assume people's motives. We have to ask questions. We have to talk. You know what I'm really good at? When I'm in the shower, having this argument in my brain, like, you know what, Brittany said this. Oh, this argument right here. Oh, this is gonna shut that down. Or, hey, this thought right here. I know she did this, and I felt this way, and she did it on purpose. So I'm gonna start formulating an argument to combat what she is intending. And then all coming to find out, what are you talking about, Cody? I wasn't trying to be passive aggressive in this situation. I was just trying to inform you of what happened. I could so easily jump to conclusions and be made a fool. We see here in the passage that these Jewish leaders are jumping to a conclusion. The brothers are jumping to a conclusion. Oh, I know you want to be a public figure because all of these skill sets you have. Go to the festival, gain a new following. Everybody, Jesus is saying you need to not just look at the mere surface, but you got to go deeper. You can't jump to conclusions. You can't assume. You need to ask questions. I think in our relationship with God, this is critical. Rather than assuming and thinking, oh, I know what God's will is, or I know what God's purpose is for my life. Well, Jesus has given you, or God's given you, his will in the Bible. There's no need to assume. Read it. And I'm not trying to simplify it to that degree, but I think it's really important that, if you're trying to feel God's will in your life, you have to make sure you're going to the Bible. You have to make sure you're judging correctly. What does it mean to be a disciple? Well, I need to sing really good church songs. Well, is that what the word says? Why? We need to judge correctly. Diving into the scriptures and making sure that God's will is what rules our life and not our opinions about what God's will says. We need to make sure we're judging correctly. When we assume and pass judgment before we have all the information, we're merely just looking at the surface. We're literally just looking at what is easy to pull rather than digging deep and understanding the full situation, the picture. Church, I want to encourage us that we need to judge correctly. And as we even think about taking communion, that we even look at our own lives and think, where in my life am I judging incorrectly?
Good question.
Maybe it's sober judgment to your own life. Maybe it's easy to look at your life on the surface, but it's the mere appearance versus looking at, okay, I need to judge correctly and think of my life in a sober judgment and dig deeper. Am I judging correctly even about what I'm doing? Am I living God's will out? So, does everybody have a communion?
It's right behind you there.
Okay, well, we'll pass that out. So as we take communion, oh, there's a bee in my hair. That was weird. As we take communion, I want to encourage us to take a sober look. Am I judging correctly? Jesus is encouraging the crowd, the leaders, his apostles, his brothers that are there. This is a call to everyone to make sure that we are judging correctly. Hi, my name is Cody Dottie with the Lynchburg Valley Church. And We're so grateful that you took time to watch our video. I pray that it has brought you joy and brought you peace and has encouraged you to continue to live this life to the full with Christ.